Hi everyone and welcome to Never Alone episode 13. I am your host Joe Ambridge.
And I'm co-host Mark Fielding and psychotherapist and relationship counsellor.
Today's episode is a bit different. We don't have a mental health disorder topic, but we do have a special guest. And here's a snippet of who it is.
The Midnight Beast! It's the year of the beast!
You better have a shower before you come out tonight, girl!
Cause you're gonna get dirty.
Go brown.
This is the part where your dad goes off on a cold Christmas Eve to get some more milk. He never comes back, and 17 years later you find out he's had a whole fucking family with some Spanish bitch, and he doesn't even know your fucking name anymore!
Shut the fuck up!
My baby's born in 1987 into a family of love and care. His mummy treats him like a gift from heaven. His daddy shows him how to style his hair. Hi there with the Midnight Beast, and I'm Dru from the Midnight Beast. I'm the oldest in the Midnight Beast, so I'm the main one in the Midnight Beast. I was born...
And of course, our special guest is Dru from the Midnight Beast. Thank you for joining us, Dru.
Hey, no problem, guys. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
And Dru is here to talk to us about mental health, and also, like, as he's in a band, we'll talk about music and the effects that touring have on mental health, and obviously the expectations that people have of being a celebrity and a musician. So Dru, just give us a little background, who you are and who the Midnight Beast are.
Yeah, for sure. My name is Dru Wakely. I am 1/3 of a comedy trio group called the Midnight Beast. And we basically have miraculously had a 10-year plus career off the back of a very silly parody from Kesha's TikTok. We were very fortunate that video went viral, and we've kind of been very fortunate to do a lot of touring, and we've even made a TV show and even written a very stupid book. It's been a fun ride.
Awesome. So as a musician, one of the first questions I wanted to ask we'll start by asking, what's your mental health journey been like?
My mental health journey has been, it's been, I guess, I don't know, normal's the right word to say. I guess for a long time, I think I've been quite fortunate. I've always been kind of, I guess, let's say, in control of my sort of mental health. I've always kind of been able to read my emotions and know kind of, when I'm happy, when I'm sad, when I'm angry, and I've been able to kind of switch those off kind of like at the appropriate times. I don't think I've ever really suffered from it. Not to kind of like jump off of music straight off the bat, but I think in more recent years, so last year, I lost my mother-in-law to cancer. And that was the first time I think my mental health has ever really been sort of shaken. And just kind of, obviously feeling a loss and a sadness that I've just sort of never kind of felt before, never experienced. Because my experience with death and stuff in the past has kind of really just been with elderly, so like with grandparents and things like that. So it's kind of obviously a bit more expected. And, for it being my mother-in-law, obviously watching my wife go through just agony, obviously that kind of had a knock-on effect on myself. And at the time, we were pregnant when we found out that her mother had cancer. So obviously that had like a kind of huge impact on us. So I think that was the first real time it was ever kind of questioned. Like I said, I don't think I've kind of suffered from it. I've never sought out any kind of professional help or counselling. I've always obviously turned to my wife and turned to friends and stuff to talk about it and things like that. But I think even throughout the band, fortunately, I've never kind of had too much of a wobble. I think obviously there's moments, there's such highs and such lows that we've been fortunate to experience. I think there's times where if I didn't have such a good, close-knit kind of friendship with Stefan Ash, who I'm in the band with, or even just good friends around me, I think something perhaps drastic could have happened, maybe if I didn't have the right people around me. But as I said, I've been quite fortunate.
Yeah, I mean, it's so important, I guess, especially for men, isn't it, to have like a really good support group. Were you able to lean on them a bit, Dru, when, it's such a major life event, isn't it? Losing, your wife losing her mum to cancer and you losing your mother-in-law. I mean, were you able to lean on the other members of the band? Because I guess you needed support.
Yeah, definitely. Like everyone just really kind of rallies around. And yeah, I've got such an amazing friendship with Stefan and Ashley from the Midnight Beast. Stefan probably just a little bit more so because I think we go back a bit further, as do Stefan and Ash. They went to school together. So, but both of them were incredible. They're really supportive. And it's such a weird sort of time. I mean, obviously people process and deal with things so differently. I think, obviously it was during the pandemic, so we couldn't exactly kind of meet up and go for a drink or, you know, even have a coffee or whatever it might be, just kind of be in each other's company. But knowing that they were at the end of the phone was wicked. And even for both my wife and me, our kind of extended friendships outside of the band as well. One of my best friends is like a brother to me, has always kind of been there, and we've helped each other on the road with other things. And like because she was diagnosed before lockdown, so when I kind of told my other best friend, he like just came around straight away and like hugged it out and was a shoulder to cry. And so it was amazing. As you said, I think it's so important for men. I think obviously it's got so much better and easier, and obviously it shows that incredible because I think it gets people talking. But I think that sometimes we hold that kind of, I don't know if it's like the testosterone or whatever, but we're some more reluctant to let loose and have a cry. But no, man, I'm pretty open about that stuff, and
Yeah, it's so good. I mean, back in my day, men, and I think this is also probably true a little bit now. You know, I mean, men are told to like suck it up, and you know, you just like deal with it yourself, and you know, and all those messages are just totally unhelpful, aren't they? Yeah. I mean, male, female, we need the support, don't we? You know, and like you say, like more men are opening up and talking about mental health, which I think is fantastic. Really, it's really snowballing now, isn't it? Which I think is really good.
Yeah, definitely.
Can I just, what was it? I mean, what was it like being pregnant and also having to go through, you know, your mother-in-law having cancer? I mean, those two things must have been, I don't know, really difficult at the same time.
Yeah, man. I mean, it was and it still is, like, it's a real kind of roller coaster of emotions, because obviously our first child, and you know, we're on obviously like a massive high. Like, you obviously kind of get this news and it's like incredible and you want to share it with everyone. Unfortunately, we were able to share the news with her. She never got to meet her, unfortunately, but you know, she knew that we were pregnant. And you know, the way we told her was we went, she lived in Kent and we were in London at the time. So we kind of drove down and stood at the window with like Love Actually style cards and kind of, I know, and it was a really moment. But yeah, obviously all of those kind of beautiful moments are tainted. You know, there is a kind of sour taste at the end, and we live through that now. I mean, my daughter's coming up to 8 months, and obviously it never goes away. Obviously it gets easier with time, but I think that's the best way to explain it, and probably 1,000 times worse for my wife, just because obviously it's her mum. But just a real like high of sort of like, oh my god, we're having a baby, like, you know, planning stuff, talking about names, or, you know, all sorts. And then as I said, you're kind of left with a sour taste, because at the time we just, you know, I think that with situations like that, they tend to stay clear of prognosis now, and like, you know, they don't like to give kind of like guidelines on life expectancy. So we didn't really know, but obviously, it's kind of that thing where in the back of your mind, you don't say it to each other, but you kind of thinking like, you know, I hope she's here for it, and sadly she's not. So it was a roller coaster.
COVID's definitely made things a lot worse. Like, I know a lot of people that have lost grandparents and not been able to see them because of COVID. And like my nan's quite old at the moment, and I'm halfway across the world from her, and I can't even go back to the country. I've not seen my family for 2 years. So if she goes, that's going to be a big loss, and not being able to say goodbye to her. It's hard. So I definitely know what you mean about losing people, especially during COVID, because it's stopped people from saying goodbye to their family members.
I actually lost, it wasn't COVID related, but I lost a grandparent during COVID times, and we sort of did a very, I mean, it's a beautiful like little goodbye and funeral, but it was a weird experience. Obviously, like only like 7 or 8 of us or whatever it was, you know, allowed, and really spaced out. It was we were fortunate that we could get together to do it, but as you said, like, I mean, COVID's just been a horrible and still is horrible for so many people. yeah, a situation like that doesn't make it any easier, does it? It's hard.
Yeah, and then similar for me over the pandemic, and not COVID related. Like I lost a really, really close friend, and yeah, normally you'd have the funeral and you'd all be able to get together, like we're part of a big friendship group. But I guess we're all denied that.
Yeah.
Denied seeing each other. It just makes really difficult situations, all the worse, doesn't it? Really, we try and manage as best we can, but yeah, it just makes it incredibly difficult, I think, doesn't it?
Interesting as well. Like, I mean, I know, like, as we're saying, like, so many people suffer throughout it, but in a way, everything that my wife and I experienced, I guess, on that personal level, kind of in a weird sort of way, that's probably odd, but couldn't have happened at a better time. I think because we were in lockdown, we were just in each other's company 24/7, and to some people's horror, my wife and I have never argued. Like, we're just a couple that are quite open and honest. We're best of friends, so we don't argue. So we weren't at each other's throats at any point. And obviously, kind of going through the cancer and going through our pregnancy, we were just at home together, so we could just live through every kind of emotion and every thought process and spoke about stuff. And I think it helped massively. I think if we were out and the world was opening up, obviously it would have been cool and amazing to go out and see other people and to talk to people. But yeah, just the fact that we could be together and be a couple in a unit, I think kind of helped massively.
It has strengthened some relationships. I thought obviously some relationships have suffered because of it, and obviously, like, we've had so many lockdowns over here in Australia, and it's strengthened my relationship with my partner. We actually get on better than we did before lockdown. I hope she doesn't mind me saying. But it definitely, like, it makes you more of a unit of family and couples and stuff. Like, it's been hard with COVID. Like, I can't see my nephew, who's only 3 years old, and obviously he doesn't understand what's going on in the world. He just thinks that we can't see us because we're sick, or because he doesn't obviously know. As you say, it's like so difficult not being able to see people, but it has strengthened it strengthens your relationships with people that you live with.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of helped to sort of, like, I think it's helped us reach out to people as well. I think even just sending the odd text there, I don't think we would take that probably a bit more for granted if COVID hadn't happened. I mean, obviously I wouldn't wish it on anyone. It's horrible that we're still going through it, but I think, there were so many, like, quizzes popping up. Like, a really good friend of mine set up an online quiz, and it's incredible. I think he's still doing it. And I think just kind of dropping people messages to just be like, hey, I think that helped massively. Really good kind of camaraderie that like a lot of people were doing. Sometimes in your phone, but it might be someone that you don't necessarily go out and have a drink with, or you go out for a meal with. But I've personally found myself, texting more people to just be like, hey, what's up? Which is nice.
Yeah, do you know, that was my experience as well. Like, during lockdown, I was having Zoom calls with people, with guys I'd not spoken to for years.
Yeah,
It's really strange, isn't it? Like, it's a time of disconnection, but actually I reconnected with people I don't know, sometimes friendships do go that way, don't they? But I was doing Zoom calls with people I literally have not spoken to for years. So I guess there are some positives, really, and we stayed in touch, so, which is good.
Yeah, we could like, obviously, being a musician, if you don't mind, like, we're moving on to some music questions and stuff.
Yeah.
So kind of, obviously, as a band, you guys tour a lot. Does touring have an impact on your mental health?
I think it certainly can play a part in it. Again, for myself, I don't think I've had a massive impact. We always talk about tour blues afterwards, because obviously, we've been very fortunate. I mean, our tours have always been quite a few hundred people, which has been incredible. And you get such a rush and such a buzz of excitement. So when that ends, or when you kind of go back to the hotel, or at the end of the tour, you're kind of like just raring, you're on a high, you just want to sort of do it again. So I'd imagine on a much bigger scale, when you're doing like thousands and thousands of people or arenas, I could see why that, why people might turn to party mode just to kind of keep that high going. But yeah, I mean, I think it's the same for Stefan Ash. Obviously, I wouldn't want to sort of speak on their behalf, but I think, just from going through the experience together, we've kind of all been on the same wavelength. And the minute the show's ended, although we're knackered and dripping with sweat, like, I personally just want to go again, because when we do our own kind of headline tour, usually the show is probably about an hour long, maybe a bit over. like it goes like that. Like it's like it feels like we've done 4 songs and it's been 20 minutes. So you're just on this high and want to kind of go again. And sometimes it's not until we're sort of, yeah, as I said, like back in the hotel room, kind of like, oh shit, like, you know, and excited for the next city, and you kind of want to go again. But yeah, so I don't think I've kind of had a massive impact from it, but I've definitely felt the kind of waves of, oh, I want to go again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Are there nerves before, Drew? Do you tend to get nervous if you're before a gig?
I do massively, yeah. And I don't know if it's more nerves of things going wrong, or if it's just the kind of anticipation and the anxiety of knowing what's about to happen. I mean, again, we're so fortunate, we've got such an incredible fan base, and knowing that there's kids out there that kind of know our songs and are going to scream along, kind of, without being arrogant, you kind of know what to expect. So you know people are there to have a good time and to see you, but there's still this kind of like anticipation of like, you know, what, like we know it's sold out, for example, but in my head I'll still get a thought of like, well, look, what if there's only like 20 people there? So it's weird, and I'll still, you know, Steph's even worse than me, but I still have about 3 or 4 nervous wheeze before we go on. There's been times where like we've started a DJ backing track for the songs. Sometimes, most times we have like a little intro, and like we'll be kind of backstage about to go on high-fiving each other, and Steph's like, I need to go for another wee, and Steph will just disappear. Is he make it back in time? He always, yeah, there's definitely an element of kind of nerves and excitement.
Yeah, I guess once you get out there and you see, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it, that even though you know like it's sold out and the whole, you know, wherever you're kind of performing is going to be filled, your mind is still saying, no, there's only going to be 20 people there.
Yeah, I think that kind of probably stems from how we came about. I mean, you know, most people that know the Midnight Beast will know this story, but like because we just genuinely dicked about, and we didn't have any plan to, you know, Steph and I grown up playing in bands and stuff like that, but for a project that me and Steph and Ash were in together, it really did just fall about by accident. So I think, you know, even 8 or 9, 10 plus years on, you know, if we were to do a show next week, there's still that element of, are those numbers online really going to translate to actually in front of us singing along? Because we just didn't expect it, and everything we've done, we've never really expected. So yeah, for the live shows, it's just an even bigger version of that. It's sort of, yeah, she said, we know it's sold out, but are people really going to jump off of YouTube and come and see it? So, and unfortunately they have, which is incredible. So it's weird.
Yeah, I guess you're kind of lucky, unlike a lot of bands, even if you change your music up or you do something different, that your fans kind of still stick by you. I know, like, as a fan myself, whatever you guys have done, I've always enjoyed the music. Was like some artists, like if they change the genre or they change the type of music, they'll lose a lot of fans.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, again, maybe that's something, if we paid a bit more attention to, that might have not gone in our favor. I mean, our rule was just always like, our stuff either had to make each other laugh, or we kind of made it to make our friends laugh. And I guess without being cheesy, like our fans sort of became part of that bubble, became, you know, part of our friendship. And yeah, you know, because we've always patched these different genres of music, and obviously there's always an element of rap stuff in there. But you know, we've done kind of poppier tunes and rock tunes, and yeah, people are sort of stuck with it. So yeah, it could have kind of gone one or two ways, I think. But we're just, I don't know, very lucky. It's just very weird.
Yeah, yeah. And on that note, like obviously speaking of songs and stuff that you guys have, like backlash from songs and changes of genres, you did a song, like a sex education video, that got a lot of backlash from the newspapers like Metro and as you said, like the Right Stuff, not you said on when we previously recorded,
Yeah,
shows like the Right Stuff gave you backlash. Did that kind of affect you guys as a band?
again, I think it could have done massively. I think it kind of definitely took us by surprise, and we were a bit sort of taken aback. I think more because the Midnight Beast, we've always been in control of our own kind of media. So, you know, from our YouTube channels to all of our social media, like it's all run by us. And any sort of press that we've been fortunate to get has either come sort of directly to us, or, you know, we've worked with management, you know, agents and things like that, and sometimes it's come through them. So it's always been quite controlled. And this was the first thing that was blown out of proportion and out of our control. So I think it definitely took us aback. But also, again, I don't think, speaking for myself, I don't think it impacted us or myself too negatively. I didn't overthink it because, in a way, I didn't really care. I think I cared about people who didn't know the Midnight Beast getting the wrong idea, because the whole point of that song was a song called Use Your Head, and it was this charity that came to us, and they'd done a focus group with kids, and at the time our fan base was very much of that age bracket. And they sort of said, if we were to do this kind of sexual education, I think it was some sort of type of contraceptive. And they said, if we were to kind of do a video or a song with someone, who would you kind of listen to? Who would you like to hear it from? And they said, the Midnight Beast was thrown out, and they just kind of approached us. So we just thought, we'll sort of do it. And the whole point was, and at the end of the video, it says, don't trust the Midnight Beast of sex advice. Go to this charity. I think they were called Lark. It was like have a lark instead. So it's like a little pun. And it just sort of blew up. And then when it was on the right stuff, so when it was spoken about on a TV channel, there was a part in it was just like, people who don't know us and don't get us are just going to write us off, and we're going to get bad press. But luckily, like, our fan base just kind of came to the rescue and just, I think they forced that channel to apologize, because also they were kind of taking the kids for idiots as well. And I think that's one of the important things was, they're not dumb. Like, they know that we're a kind of tongue-in-cheek band, and they just said, do you really think we're going to listen to that and actually act on it? So they had to apologize. But it did make me kind of think as well that I think on a much bigger scale, I can't really think of an example, but for some of these kind of celebrities, particularly like reality show stars, or even just mega celebs like pop stars, if they do one sort of foot wrong and it's blown out of proportion, you can see why it has a massive impact on their mental health if they can't walk down the street or go to the shops without it being judged. You can see why those people really crumble, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Like, we're going to do an episode on media and mental health next series, and like just the impact that like it has on people, like the tiniest thing in the newspaper. And I was making the point to someone earlier about, I think I was talking to my partner about sheep, and how there's people that the sheep follow the media and they believe what they hear in the paper, so they'll automatically think it's true. And the tiniest thing can push someone over the edge. People like Caroline Flack. Taylor, I watched a documentary on Taylor Swift, and she had a lot of backlash and people saying horrible stuff just because of something someone in the media said. And it is ridiculous the impact that, like, social media have on people. And this whole, like, me and my partner watched Love Island, and there's this whole Be Kind thing in the groups and stuff about Love Island because of what happened with Caroline Flack and a few of the other contestants. And like, the fact that we have to tell people to be kind kind of shows them the society we live in. Yeah,
it blows my mind. And it's like kind of catch-22, because obviously on the one hand, you don't want to be against those kind of messages, because obviously it's true. Like, obviously we need to be kind to each other, we need to talk to each other. But like you said, the very fact that there has to be something implemented to tell human beings that is just absolutely obscene. It's mental. It really blows my mind that, like, we have to be reminded to be nice to each other. Like, what the fuck is that? Do you know what I mean? It's crazy.
Yeah. And the thing that, and the press are partly responsible. I mean, the press, certainly the British press, they love to build people up and then just pull them down. They do, the press do that all the time, don't they? 1 minute they're building a celebrity up, the next minute something comes out, and or they're looking into their private life, and then something comes up. It's so damaging for people. So I think the press have quite a bit of responsibility, really. Of course, there's social media as well. I guess people, it's really easy on Twitter, isn't it, to sit there and start being really horrible. If you're having, if your life is not that happy, so easy to start criticizing someone else. It's just really, really easy, isn't it? So I guess things like Twitter, they can be a force for good or a force for the opposite, really.
That's the one thing, like, it does have an impact on people, like the artists and stuff, with negative comments. And that's one thing I like about what Midnight Beast do. They obviously, you guys have a series called The Monday Beast, and you've had a few episodes where you guys have laughed at your YouTube, like, mean comments and stuff about yourself. And obviously, there's not a lot of people, not everyone can laugh at the comments, but you guys obviously can kind of it's a good way to show that it doesn't bother you.
Yeah, I mean, again, kind of take in one of two ways as well. I think, you know, on the one hand, we might be seen to kind of not encouraging it, but, you know, we're shining a light on it and we're not exactly shutting it down. But yeah, I mean, again, I don't know. It kind of shows we're in a kind of good place and we're supportive to each other kind of mentally as well, that we can just kind of like laugh at some of the more ridiculous kind of stuff. Because, you know, again, for some people they can't do this, but, you know, I'm very much of the thing where if there's like a bad review or a bad YouTube comment or you know, someone's just being a dickhead, like I'm quite fine. Sometimes I can see a bit red and I can get a bit angry, but I'm in a good place where I can turn it off. I can just shut off my phone or I can just close the laptop. For some people that really manifests and they can't do that. So I kind of appreciate that. But I think that was just probably our way of kind of being like, well, we don't really care. And again, not that I think anyone should be doing that kind of stuff or open to kind of getting bullied or trolled or commented. But I think that is the problem with, we share so much of our lives as like human beings now online. And yeah, like, you know, want to hammer home, obviously I'm not encouraging any sort of bullying or type of thing like that, but when you throw literally everything online, people are going to pass judgment and people are going to comment. And I think we've kind of got to learn to just, you know, I would love to encourage people to try and switch off from it. Like, you don't need your phone 24/7. And, you know, it's the stuff with bad press as well. Like, the minute people stop listening to that kind of stuff or switching it off, they don't have an audience. So there's no one there to read it. And I've kind of got such a love-hate thing with shows like Love Island and sort of, you know, I call them like, you know, Z-lister celebrities, you know, these kind of reality stars. And like, funny enough, my wife and I were talking about this one dude called Stephen Bear. I don't know if you've...
Oh yeah, I saw about him.
He's recently just gone kind of completely viral for some obscene thing. But it's kind of like he's doing it because we're all watching it and there's people talking about it, media responding to it. If everyone just switched off, he hasn't got a platform. So it's kind of, I know it's easier said than done, but, you know, the minute you kind of cut something off like that, there's no audience. So I think we kind of need to have our own responsibilities with that stuff as well. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a bit like people like Katie Hopkins and Jedward and stuff, because people comment on what they say. They get a response, and that's why they do it, because they're getting an audience. Yeah.
And, you know, that old saying of like any publicity is good publicity. Well, for a lot of people, it is true. It rings true. I mean, we certainly saw some of the benefits from that sex education video that kind of was negatively portrayed. You know, I certainly saw a spike of followers or people kind of Googling our names and things like that, or commenting on our YouTube. So it does work. You know, it's gutting to say it does work because it gets your name out there. Of course, if you start seeing whether it's good or bad, a name thrown everywhere, most people are going to want to check that out to see what it is. But it's when people capitalize on that. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of management companies and a lot of press companies, you know, these people that sit down and kind of orchestrate all of that kind of stuff have got a lot to answer for. And, you know, I'm the same, again, just not to kind of flip too back and forth, but with the Love Island thing, you know, I'm guilty of it as well. You know, I'll sit there and watch it and I really roll my eyes, and it kind of like, it irritates me that this again might sound a bit funny, but they're so pro mental health, but the whole show is so damaging to mental health. Like, it's such a show that you know, only shows one type of body, let's say, and one type of person, male or female. Well, I guess trans, but I don't think they've had any trans people in there. And it, you know, I kind of feel like they've been backed into this corner where they have to be so pro mental health. But actually, the entire show is casting doubt in those couples' minds. Like, there's all these little seeds of, you know, they go to that Villa Casa Amor and excuse me, you know, it's constant seeds of doubt. And that is just driving a massive wedge into people's mental health. So it's sort of you can't have your cake and eat it.
Yeah, and the body, you know, like I was going to say, like you say, the body types on Love Island. I mean, people, you know, I mean, everyone is perfect, aren't they? You know, and I guess normal people look at that and think, wow, you know, I don't look like that. You know, I mean, just the way, you know, body types are portrayed, you know, let alone anything else, I think is potentially damaging, isn't it, for people?
It's so bad. And even when they come off shows, you know, they have, you know, I'm not against surgery. If that kind of makes you happy, then absolutely fine, do your thing, right? But, you know, it's known that those cosmetic companies like go to those contestants when they leave the show because, you know, and they offer them work for free. and all it takes is like a shout out on social media. But then what's damaging is all of those particularly young minds, when they follow those people and they think that's the idea of perfect, everyone go and emulate that. But really, that's not the average body form. And like I said, all up for people being happy, because obviously, we're talking about mental health, and if someone's really unhappy with something on their face or their body, yeah, fine. If that's going to make you happier and feel good about yourself, you do what you got to do. But again, you've got to take some responsibility with people seeing that and thinking that's the idea of perfect. It's not.
The same with magazines and TV shows as well. Like,
yeah,
you look at these magazines, you've got attractive people on the front.
Surfing bad stuff.
I have to admit that I've been a lot, especially with like, even with like, it sounds random, but mannequins in shops of different body shapes now, which has been really good. And speaking about Love Island, I saw something on social media because I follow some of the pages. Although I'm embarrassed to admit, Love Island USA have got people that are a bit more curvy on there.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think obviously UK and they have an Australian one as well here as well. I don't watch that one, but they should have more curvy people on it and different body types.
Yeah.
Because people would still watch, wouldn't they? I mean, I'm thinking about, I know Big Brother's kind of stopped years ago, but, people, they're not going to lose their audience by showing real people. I mean, if anything, maybe they get a better audience.
More relatable.
Big Brother was massive, wasn't it, at the time?
I always said to my wife, whenever Love Island comes on, I'm always like, can you just imagine if, like, they had all particularly male, because I'm male, but like, all of the guys there lined up, and then I just plotted out, bit of a dad bod, balding. In that lineup, I would not get picked, and that's not me trying to be self-deprecating for a laugh. Like, it's just a fact, and like, we often joke about that. I just think it'd be so funny to just see, like, well, not even funny, but it would just be so cool to just see that one or two people and just see the reaction. It would be quite, considering they're there for love as well. I think is quite.
It does make you look as well, especially people like that. You think, I was saying this to Mark earlier, people like that, you wouldn't think they'd struggle to find someone because they've got that perfect body type. And as much as it might make you think, why are they looking for love? It also should make you think, oh, they're struggling to get love. Then I'm not the only one that's struggling to find someone.
But then there's also the 50k cash prize that they're.
Yeah.
Well, mind you, just the cash prize, but it's all the endorsements afterwards that's more lucrative, isn't it?
Yeah, like Pretty Little Thing and stuff like that.
I mean, there are shows.
Girlfriend as a joke. It'd be hilarious if someone like me and her could get on and pretend that we're not together and then get together and win the prize. But yeah, just want to ask you a few more questions about music. And obviously, you guys had a TV series, like on the topic of TV series, you guys had a TV series. Were you worried about the backlash that you might get from that because it was something different and something you guys hadn't done before?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the first time around, so we were fortunate to do two series, and the first time round, I think we were just buzzing. We were just pure happy that someone was trusting us to kind of take what we did on our YouTube channel and make a bigger scale of it. And we had an amazing crew, and the channel were, our contacts there were phenomenal. And at the time, we were represented by two sisters who are agents, and they were phenomenal. So we were really looked after, and that I don't think, again, for me, didn't really kind of play into our minds. And when it was aired, there was obviously a kind of element of, oh, I wonder how this will be perceived. But again, I kind of felt like we were making it more for our fans. So I think we kind of felt comforted in the fact that, so far, so good. Our fans were enjoying everything that we were making, most of the things we were making. So yeah, it didn't really worry me too much. And then I think probably the second season was when, although it's my preferred season, I think we kind of found our feet with it and it got better. I think that's probably when the seeds of doubt started to get sown a little bit. And again, I didn't really suffer from anything, and I didn't feel like my mental health took a toll, but it took a toll on my mental health. But I certainly kind of went looking for reviews a bit more, and naturally, because you're kind of coming back, you kind of, not to quote Eminem, but you've got to capture that magic in the same bottle. And so I think it was certainly more of a journey, and I was kind of aware of people's perceptions of it, and and also because you got that pressure from the channel as well. I mean, again, they were lovely. There was never any kind of difficult conversations, but you know, they've obviously got targets that they want to hit, and they want to make sure it's pulling in a good audience. And you know, so yeah, there was definitely more pressure there for sure.
Yeah. How come there wasn't a series 3?
Yeah. Go on, Jeff.
How come there wasn't a third series?
How come there wasn't a third one?
Yeah.
You'll have to ask Channel 4.
I'm
no.
gutted.
I think perhaps it's run its course for them. I think maybe, being completely honest, I think they were hoping for better numbers. I think the problem was you know, I'm in no doubt that one of the reasons, the main reason we were offered a TV show was because at the time our YouTube channel was blowing up, and our fan base, and because it was on E4, and E4's fan bases kind of mirrored each other. Like, it was quite young. And yeah, I think it made the perfect sense. It was the perfect home for us. And yeah, obviously we got a second season, so the first one did quite well. I genuinely can't remember figures, but I think they were just hoping that it would just go up and up. And I think, unfortunately, there was just a slight dip. And obviously, like, they've had shows like In-Betweeners and, you know, other huge successful shows. So I think when you're up against shows like that, you know, you've kind of got to pull in a similar, if not the same audience. And I think, sadly, they just felt like, you know, we've done two shows and it run its course, which is sad, but it's fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, G, what's it like really going from, I guess, not being known to, you know, being a celebrity? I mean, that's the journey, isn't it? I mean, what was that like for you? So you did the YouTube channel first, and then it just snowballed, and then all of a sudden you're doing gigs to, you know, massive places. I just wonder it's quite a transition for someone, that, I think.
It is, man. And you're very kind to don the term celebrity. I've never sort of seen myself in that sort of way. Yeah, it's weird for sure. I think during the sort of height of our YouTube channel, when we crossed over to TV, you know, certainly got, you know, the notoriety was certainly different, and we had people coming up to us in the street asking for pictures, and even, oh, you guys are from the telly, or from YouTube. And yeah, it was funny. It was always quite predominantly young people when we were on our YouTube channel, and then the minute we hit TV, like, it was kind of adults coming over and sort of saying, "Oh, you're from the telly." So it was definitely weird. I mean, I was never in a position where I couldn't go to the shops. You know, I've always been able to, like, jump on a tube, or, you know, I've never sort of had any kind of extremities. But yeah, it was certainly a kind of bizarre thing to kind of get used to. I mean, obviously there's a buzz of excitement, and it's very flattering to have someone come over and be an admirer of your work, and particularly because it's also creative and stuff like that, so subjective. You know, you're either into it or you're not, or you can read it a few different ways. And so to have people of all ages and all different backgrounds come over and kind of want to applaud that and just say hi is an incredible feeling, and it makes you kind of want to do more. And again, I think, you know, not to just try and pigeonhole the mental health stuff into it, but I think also that gives you a sense of gratification as well. So I think, like I said before, Midnight Beast, even, you know, I've always been in control of my emotions, so I've never suffered. But, you know, there was, like I said, a sort of sense of gratification and kind of knowing that you're doing something right and people are enjoying it. So yeah, but it's definitely, funny enough, I was out the other day and I was talking to my wife, and I just said, can you imagine if, and it wasn't just necessarily talking about myself, but we were talking about reality TV stars and things like that. And I just said, could you imagine if we were just walking down the street and you can't walk down the street, you know, that One Direction kind of, going for a meal and you can't get in, or, you know, it must be horrible for those guys that have it on that extreme level.
It's even like that. I don't know if you've heard of the Sidemen.
Say that again, sorry.
You ever heard of the Sidemen in KSI?
Yeah, the KSI group. Yeah.
Like, some of their videos, you've seen the amount of people that stop them when they're trying to record to go and say hello to them. It was ridiculous. Yeah. I couldn't even imagine having that.
Yeah, it's bizarre. I mean, funny enough, I'm working on a shameful plug here, but I'm working on a book at the moment. So just kind of started off, I was kind of just going with my wife, and because I was talking about my daughter, and I was like, isn't it weird that she's going to uncover this world about her dad in later years?
Yeah.
I had this idea to kind of write a book kind of talking about it and talking about the journey and just all the mental things, because without being arrogant, when I sort of list some of the stuff we've done, it's insane, and I'm so grateful and fortunate. So it's kind of a way to show her that all of that stuff kind of happened. And I've got to a point where I was just writing about our first, not the Hadouken show, which was our first support show, but our kind of first own show. And it was part of the Great Escape Festival, which is the show in Brighton. And we were a kind of last minute addition, and we kind of did the secret show, and we kind of announced that we were playing, and we thought, like 20, 30 people might show up, and genuinely about 2,000 kids stormed this little tiny pier that we were on in this little makeshift stage. And afterwards, they had to have security come down because it was such a small stage, there was no barriers. And they had to call in a favor and get security down and form a human barrier. And then when we left the into Keith's Steph's dad's car, and we were driving, and there were kids like running alongside
Wow.
The most, because that really was a moment where the numbers on YouTube translated to kids in front of us because they were there solely to see us, which was amazing. So yeah, I just thought that was a real kind of wow moment of like, yeah, I don't know, like I would never like to sort of say the word famous, but there was that kind of notoriety where people were just desperate to kind of see us, and I just in the car, and it really was a sort of almost like Beatles kind of on a much smaller scale, like a Beatles mania moment. Quite bizarre.
Yeah, it's funny you say the Beatles. That's what I was thinking of. It's kind of like the Beatles, isn't it? When you see them in those clips coming off a plane and in the US, everyone's kind of screaming. But I mean, what a moment for you and the band, though. I mean, to have 2,000 people unexpectedly turn up, and then to have people running along side of the car. I mean, that must have felt, I don't know, wanting to say surreal, really, but
completely surreal, and just again, just that kind of rush of endorphins and that buzz of just like, oh, like this is actually a thing. I mean, we were fortunate by that point. We already knew that we were a beast and we were working on stuff, but it really cemented that this was bigger than, like I said earlier, the three of us just dicked about and made that first video, not intending it for it to be anything. And we were like, oh, well, so we are a band then, I guess. Like we actually, we have a that will come and see us. So yeah, it was very surreal, very, very surreal.
Yeah, it's crazy. The first time I saw you guys was the Hadouken show. And then obviously you did the secret gig at Boardmasters. I think that's like many years ago now. And that was very last minute, I think, as well, because I remember I got a message saying you guys were doing a secret show, and then all of a sudden, we were about to leave to go home, and it said you guys were doing a show. I was like, oh, I've got to stay. Please let me stay.
Yeah.
I went, and there was quite a few people at that show as well, and then obviously I had the luck to kind of by chance meet you guys afterwards.
Yeah, that's so cool. Like when you sent over the photos, I genuinely totally remembered, like I could picture it. It was amazing. Yeah.
And like even though you were on your phone, like you stopped and you had your photo taken with me, and I was like so grateful. That made my day. Like that was the first time I'd really met anyone that I was a big fan of, and obviously I had the luck to kind of beat you guys a few times. And like how do you kind of deal with people coming up to you and knowing you? Like for me, I'm not someone famous, but like a funny chance, like I was on holiday obviously in Australia, but like this was before I'd even moved here. I was on holiday and went to the Barrier Reef, and these people thought I was famous, and like they were asking me for photos. I was like, I'm not famous. Why are you guys like boy, photo? Like, I'm not famous. But like after a while, I was just like, the amount of times they asked me, I was getting annoyed. I was like, oh, I'm not famous, okay? And they just harassed me for photos. How do you guys deal with like people knowing you and stuff?
I think we just kind of take it in its stride, really, and just as and when the situations happen like that, we kind of just make a judgment call. I think, for kind of during the height of the Midnight Beast and when we were really kind of, I guess, viral online and stuff, we were just grateful to meet people that were fans, really, and still are to this day. I think, I think I'd perhaps draw the line if I was out with my daughter now and someone wanted to come over and I was like feeding her or something, I might sort of say, oh, I'll say hello, but perhaps wouldn't want to have a picture if I'm holding my daughter or something. But we're always just so grateful. I mean, people like yourself, Joe, and anyone that's ever listened to our stuff or bought a ticket or whatever, that's the reason we ended up doing it for so long, and it's the reason we've had a up until now, 10-year plus career of doing the Midnight Beast. And I just think for anyone, however kind of small, if someone's got 10 followers or 100,000 followers, like those people are supporting you. So it's always important to show some love and kind of be grateful. And obviously it does get to a point where sometimes if there is a big crowd, or, you know, if you're fortunate to do a meet and greet or whatever it is, then, you know, sometimes there's not enough hours in the day to kind of respond to everyone or to meet everyone. So it is difficult. Like, again, in the height of Twitter, I mean, Twitter's kind of died a lot of social media, but I remember when it took off and I was replying to a few people one time, and then I started seeing messages of being like, oh, you've messaged everyone but me. And it's like, it's physically just, you can't reply to everyone. But yeah, no, I'm, like I said, genuinely just always grateful and flattered that someone would appreciate or enjoy what I do enough to come and say hello, really.
Yeah, there's definitely something about the band and your relationship with the fans, isn't there? That is like mutually kind of positively reinforcing. Yeah. I mean, do you think it's easier being with a band compared to if you were solo? I mean, kind of getting the media attention, everything we've talked about today. I mean, would that be more difficult if it was just you, Dru? Or does it help having the three of you?
That's interesting. That's a really good question. Yeah, I think it's, for me personally, it would be a lot more difficult if I was on my own. I think, you know, I weirdly, although I'm a performer, I can get quite shy and a bit anxious at the best of times. You know, I think even the first time we spoke on the previous recording, you know, I sort of had the jitters of kind of nerves and excitement, just because it's sort of me on my own and it's very much reliant on my kind of thought questions. So yeah, I think anything like that, whether it's press stuff or even fan stuff, the fact that I get to share that with not only two other people but two of my best friends, is amazing, and it makes life so much easier. And, you know, we can help each other out, and, you know, even subliminally, whether it's been picked up on or not, around the time of the TV show, obviously you get to do kind of like press junkets and talk to people. And, you know, we can, because we know each other so well, you know, we can tell when the other person's maybe waffling or kind of running out of substance to say, so we can each other. And, you know, sometimes all it takes is a little look to just be like, help me out here. So we can kind of support each other. And again, you know, as in the subject of mental health, even to just kind of bound together and help each other if we're feeling a bit low, or, you know, just even creatively, if we're kind of stuck, like the fact that there's three of us there to help out. And our songwriting sessions have always happened in numerous ways. I mean, Stefan is the songwriting guru, and he's the kind of main powerhouse behind it. And then I'll help with production, and then Ash kind of jumps in and will help with lyrics and song ideas. And sometimes we do a version of all three of us or just two of us. So yeah, even that kind of bounding together helps. I think if you're on your own, you know, even that is going to have a toll massively. I mean, even when I'm making my own kind of music production, because it is just me and you hit a creative block, you kind of haven't really got an outlet to kind of share that with sometimes. So yeah, it's definitely a lot easier having two of your best buds with you.
Yeah, it definitely helps having someone to kind of back you up. I think I agree with you, because like I've got Mark, and I've never hosted a podcast before, and then I had Mark on, who's the psychotherapist. So having someone that knows their stuff is really helpful.
Yeah, it's substance as well. You can just bounce off them, and, you know,
definitely. And
also, two brains are always better than one. And you know, there might be something, for example, in the podcast you might have missed Joe, and then Mark can kind of cover from a different angle. You sit down to get the best sort of creative stuff out of it as well.
Yeah, I mean, just between Joe, Joe and I used to work together years ago, and so yeah, it's nice having. I mean, we talk almost every day, Joe, don't we? So yeah, it is nice doing it with one of your mates. I mean, it does make a big difference, doesn't it? And I guess there were some funny moments, Drew, right, when the three of you are together, and you're whatever you're doing, you know, you're doing media or whatever. I mean, there must be some really, really funny moments where you're all looking at each other, you know, and kind of laughing inside, right? But
yeah, even just like innocent little things, you know, when you sometimes trip up on your own words, or I don't know, like my voice sometimes will just fucking break in the most, you know, I'm fucking 30, my voice is still squeaking in random places, and sometimes we'll just rip on each other afterwards for days, like, you know, but again, it's just all like just coming from knowing each other for so many years, and like I said, all together. So, you know, they've got those little kind of anecdotes that they'll bring up, and you know, obviously from Midnight Beast, we share the same kind of interest in humor and comedy and music. So, bonding over that and stuff is like funny. But like, I love it when things go wrong and we can just like give each other a little look and kind of piss at each other a bit. It's always fun.
Yeah. Whereas I guess if you're on your own, you don't have that. If you're a solo performer, something could be really funny. I mean, there's probably people around you, aren't they? But it's not the same as having two of your closest friends. You can probably get the joke without even talking. When you've known people that long, you're just on the same wavelength, aren't you?
Yeah. I think that's the thing. If you're a solo artist on like, a superstar level, like Jason Derulo or Bieber or something, like, isn't it? You're that solo act. You just employ like your best mates to be around you, and then it kind of life is so much easier.
Yeah, is there anything that maybe we haven't talked about today, Dru, that you'd like to bring in and mention?
I don't know really. I mean, it depends how long you guys have got. It's one of those things. I think through all the kind of highs and lows that we've spoken about with the Midnight Beast in the kind of height of it, I guess it's quite an interesting thing to talk about where we are now. I mean, obviously, we're kind of all in our 30s, and we're all kind of like, I guess, like homeowners and stuff, and you kind of got those kind of like adult responsibilities. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. It'd be interesting to see where it's difficult because the boys aren't here, but kind of like mentally, I know because a lot of people. Sorry, I guess what I'm getting at is a lot of people kind of ask what Midnight Beast is doing now, and like, when are we going to come out with something? And I guess it's kind of open ended. Like, we don't really have an answer for it. I think the Midnight Beast has always been three best friends, right? So we're not an act and we're not a band that will just do your conventional splitting up like Midnight Beast has done. I think so as long as they're friends, the Midnight Beast will always be a thing.
Yeah.
But I think just kind of touching on that social pressure and stuff, and with social media and things like that, it's like, do we have the energy and the time now to kind of chase those type of numbers that perhaps expected from us to make? We've been really fortunate that a lot of our videos went over 1 million views, right? But there's also a bunch on there that didn't make that. And it does get I mean, you look at our subscriber account. Again, I'm not kind of shitting on the fact that we have hundreds of thousands of subscribers. It blows my mind to this day. A lot of YouTubers, for example, now should have surpassed that and would be on millions and millions of subscribers. And that's why they're doing huge things. So it's quite interesting to try and, I think my headspace kind of does go a bit funny when I think about what's kind of expected of the band now. If we were to put out an album, or if we were to do just a random YouTube video now, is there still the same pull there and the same reach? And like, if we did put up a video, we'd always be doing it for the love of what we want to do, but naturally you're trying to capture that same moment. So if it kind of flopped, and I use the quotations there because, for me, if a video has 10 views, there's still 10 people that have watched it. But it kind of ties in with that expectation of at least has now, should we be getting more than that? And if we didn't, do we feel deflated? Do we feel bummed out? Like, oh, is it worth doing more? And, all of those conversations, it would be quite interesting for everything that we kind of had the opportunities of doing versus now. And also kind of not to waffle on, sorry, feel free to shut me up.
No, it's okay.
From a monetary perspective, I can hand on my heart say that we didn't do anything just to get the monetary gain. Obviously, it's always beneficial when you've got bills like that. But, when you get to a certain age, and like I said, I'm fortunate enough to have a mortgage and have a house, but stuff that needs to be paid for. I have a daughter now, I have a dependent and things like that. And, it's sort of like things now need to be thought about and strategized. And, we don't have a management anymore. We were never with a record label. So you kind of got to think about those things. You've got to find your own sort of job opportunities. And then it becomes, are you making the content for the money, or are you making the content to make content? And I know that's something I certainly kind of battle with. And I'm not saying that like with having offers left, right and center, but it's one of those things where if we wrote a script, or if we wrote an idea, or if we wrote an album, I personally, I don't want to speak for Stefan Ash, but I don't have the time now to just kind of give up weeks here willy-nilly without bringing any income or anything like that. So it's I guess that kind of makes the the mind go a little bit more than perhaps it would have done 8 or 9 years ago.
Yeah,
It's
YouTube's
really
definitely a lot
interesting.
harder now. Like you have
Yeah.
to have clickbait and stuff and have certain the way it works. And I hear a lot of YouTubers talk about it because years ago, like maybe 2 or 3 years ago, I really wanted to do YouTube and take it off, but I never really had the idea of what I wanted to do it. So obviously I do the podcast now and I do filmmaking. We really want the podcast to take off, and we were struggling on YouTube to get, like, I think most views we would ever get was like maybe 300, 400. But obviously that doesn't get an income or anything. You have to have over 1,000 views and have over a certain amount of subscribers. So moving on to Spotify was a big change, and it's getting in a lot more listeners, which has been really beneficial for us. And having you on and having the people we've had on so far has been really like good for us. It's just so difficult to kind of go in the right direction with projects on YouTube and Spotify and stuff like that.
I think as well as like when you're up against big companies and algorithms and you know, companies that spend money on advertising, like it is difficult. You know, I always, again, I'm referring to the book I'm writing. I wrote a sentence saying that, you know, I firmly believe we were in the golden age of YouTube, and I don't think, with all the greatest will and creative minds, I don't think we could ever really recapture what we did in those early years, because everything was organic and it was, you know, you had people who'd gone viral on YouTube before. I'm not trying to say that we were the first to do it, but I think we were in that early group, that early kind of category of people that did get to go viral. And yeah, as I said, I think with all the will in the world, I don't think you could really recapture that without spending money or doing a kind of advertisement, having a brand on board and stuff like that. I mean, people do by accident, of course they do. It's not impossible, but yeah, I think it's so much harder to kind of like you said, you know, with the podcast and things like that, you know, you're trying to get something, but it's such a crowded market. It's so saturated now, and it can leave you with the taste of like, what's the point? And which is a shame, because, you know, there's so many great creative things out there, but when you're wrestling against people that, you know, have already got all of those kind of hits and things like that, or, you know, a company that's spending X amount of money and has got a back pocket with Facebook or whatever it might be, it's extremely difficult and frustrating.
Yeah, because you guys are kind of lucky you were viral before like Sidemen and KSI and all that. It was a early. I'm trying to think when it would have been. Now it would have been maybe like 10 years ago, maybe.
Yeah,
when you guys started, and like a few years after that, I think, and then it kind of was really difficult to get into. Like, you needed to do content that people were going to listen to. Even like I hear people like Sidemen say that it's so hard to produce content that they know it's going to do well, and they're more about doing stuff for their fans now. They're not as worried about, because they've made the money they've made.
Yeah,
they're not as worried about views as much as they would be before.
I think that's the really key thing there, though, as well. It's like you then start guessing the kind of content you're making. You know, Midnight Beast has always been about taking the piss and being satirical and tongue-in-cheek and things like that. And obviously, you know, we're pretty sweary and have got some kind of like out there lyrics and stuff like that. But that doesn't sit well with, you know, sometimes YouTube algorithms and things like that. And you know, that can have such an impact on you creatively, because then you're just like, you know, we've had in the past like whole idea for songs, you know, even made like music for it, and then completely scrapped it because we then start second guessing things. Or, you know, in the early days, like the inhibition, it's just totally gone. You start kind of really worrying about how it's perceived and things like that, and you know, it kind of damages it creatively, I think, which kind of sucks.
As a song, you've got a song called Clickbait, and it kind of says it all. It's kind of how you get views, like you said in your song Clickbait. You've got to have thumbnails and stuff that will get people in. Yeah,
it's why it's a topic, but it's kind of why, for many reasons, I hate the Paul brothers. You know, the Logan and what's his face, Jake.
Yeah.
I can't stand them. I think they're awful human beings. Like, you know, the whole questioning whether he was really colorblind, like that Clickbait, which we actually took the piss out of in our song Clickbait. The whole fucking filming that unfortunate person. Yeah, like it's all fucking clickbait. And the problem is, and it ties back to what we were saying with the whole media hype, is it's just headlines but you're just adding fuel to the fucking fire. And
Yeah.
I get it, story there. Of course, there's a story there, but you know, unfortunately, arseholes like that then just get huge off of it, and I guess don't really think about the repercussions. And it's like, it still blows my mind that man filmed a dead body, like that's someone's ever, and is now fucking boxing for millions or whatever. Like, I'm not saying he shouldn't be allowed to box or anything, you know, nothing drastic, but it just blows my mind that happened, and we will kind of go, oh yeah.
Yeah, no, it's ridiculous. Like, and they weren't like, wasn't majorly that famous over here or over in the UK and that big at that time. He was one of the biggest ones in America, but that was because of Disney and stuff like that. But
Yeah,
the fact they just brushed it aside, if he'd been someone else, maybe someone like maybe KSI or someone had done something like that, they would have been cancelled. It would have been out the window.
absolutely.
Yeah, I'd love to like chat for ages, and don't want to keep you on for ages, but yeah, we're probably gonna have to wrap up, and just want to say massive thank you for coming on, and best of luck with everything, and we really do appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, Drew. It's been really good.
Yeah, thanks so much, Joe. Like both of you, it's been really awesome to kind of talk about it all, and like I said, like what you guys are kind of doing and raising awareness, and just kind of, you know, having that kind of voice to kind of talk about things, I think is wicked. So yeah, like keep doing what you're doing, and I'm flattered to have been asked to come on. So if you ever want me back at a later date, I'll be more than happy.
Yeah, thank you. Really
Thanks so
appreciate
much.
that.
And
Good to meet you.
One thing you forgot to add is obviously your music's helped me a lot as well when I've had down times, and thank you for the music you've made. And
That's
I want to
awesome.
say thank you to Mark for joining and obviously helping me co-host again.
No
And
problem. Good to see.
we'll share your YouTube channel and your socials and stuff on our social media pages after the episode, and I'll send the episode through when it's done.
Awesome. Thanks very much. Looking forward to it.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Okay. Have a good Sunday, Drew.
Take care.
Cheers. Bye.
Thank you. If you're interested in being a guest in any future episodes, please contact me via lionstellmultimedia@gmail.com, or contact me on Facebook.